Executive Chairman of the Cross River Internal Revenue Service, Prince Edwin Okon. Prince, so good to have you join us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Joseph.
Now, let's start by, I was able to let the people know when you were appointed. Now, let's look at those achievements you were able to achieve since you took over as the acting IRS boss.
Okay. Thank you so much, Joseph, for inviting me to throw more light on some of the key issues in the state and at the same time educate the taxpayers, like I might say, on what we need to do together to be able to make Cross River State a better place. I must point out that first, the workforce, once you have a good workforce, very hardworking workforce, you can do a whole lot. And one of the things we did when we assumed office was to look at the entire workforce of Cross River Internal Revenue Service, look at the skill gap, look at all the things we need to do, having also understood the various parameters for them in the system so that to help us achieve the goals that we needed to do. So first thing was to actually look at, study the gap, study the system, look at what we need to do differently to be able to achieve that objective of supporting the governor achieve that mantra, being the people's at least growing the system and making sure that we make the Cross River State and also make Cross Riverians experience the season of sweetness.
Great. Now, doing a background check on you, we noticed that you left a very lucrative job to take up this task of leading IRS in your state. What had informed that decision to move and take up this job?
Honestly, first, like I've always said, first is service. I'm a Rotarian. I must point out that which we always preach service above self. And one key thing that's very key is that service. That was the driving force. And I've always been a participant in the system, even on the quiet side. I remember my student union days where I was also a student leader here in the States. I was one of those that did a whole lot in the past in my student union days, and that drive has always been there. I've also been involved in doing one humanitarian service or the other, and I felt that working in the state and especially seeing the kind of mindset and belief that the governor has. Because one thing is leaving where your comfort zone to come and participate in the governance, and another is actually the leader giving you that free hand to be able to work assiduously to also support his objective, within the system. So that was really the driving force. Service first, and at the same time supporting the governor, especially made the target which I set for Cross Riverians.
Great. Okay. Now, very recently organized a one-day workshop where you brought the former FIRS boss, the very Babatunde Fowler, who gave a keynote address, at that event. Would you mind talking to us on that?
Okay, thanks a lot. And let me point it to be on record so that Tunde Fowler came into the state. And if we know the history of revenue generation in the country, Tunde Fowler was the Internal Revenue Chairman when Asiwaju, the current president of the country, was the governor of Lagos State. And there's this story then that happened where the federal government staffed the state so they had to look out for different ways of generating revenue for the state. And Tunde Fowler was that magic. So we had to bring someone that has that magic to be able to assist Cross River. And he gave us those training free. He didn't charge us a kobo for it. And I must also confess that one of the very good person in the state, Mr. Ani, used his contact to get Tunde to us. And it's the same thing I also drive out to everybody. Use your contacts, bring in persons that will assist the state, use your contacts. It's not just to complain. Use your contacts to bring resource persons, to bring investors, to bring different kinds of persons that will assist the state. And I know the governor, being who he is, Senator Basio too, is ready to listen to any person with valuable advice, valuable ideas that will help the state get away. So the training was so robust. We had the training. In fact, at that training, one of the feedback is that we have 100,000 dormant taxpayers, people that have not been paying tax over time. And we are taking all that exercise, working with all the financial intelligence bureau agencies to be able to actually bring out those names so that we can assist the states to achieve its objective. And key to it is increasing the revenue profile of the states.
Okay. Now, before you came on board the IRS boss, there have been these allegations of multiple taxations in Cross River State. How are you handling that as the new kid on the block?
Okay, let me point out that my preamble, remember, I workforce and the things we did differently, and that really assisted us. When I came in, we met an average monthly revenue of about 1.7, and we started growing from 2.4 to 2.5 as we speak. As at the end of December, we closed with 2.6 billion. And our target is to drive it closer to 3 to 5. And with all the things we're putting on ground, I'm very confident that we'll be able to achieve that. On the issues around the multiple taxation, what are we doing differently? We've started the harmonized tax system. And let me also say this publicly here that by December, worst case scenario, because we have a company we're working with currently, by December, the issues around multiple taxation, as much as possible, will be reduced. And how are we doing this? Thanks to the federal government, who has also set up a committee, the Tax Reform Committee. Everybody is coming out with different ideas. We're also looking at internally to come up with the harmonized tax system. And what does that mean? We realize that for a typical company, you have like 10, 14 consultants coming to you to ask for different kinds of taxes. We don't want cross-variants to suffer from that anymore. So what are we doing? We're putting out a system where all the companies in the states, the SMEs, the other kinds of companies, will have just one consultant be in charge of all the taxes. So we started registering, we started talking to the companies themselves, and for the big names in the states, because we're looking at the volume now, for the big names in the states, we won't even want any consultant to go to those companies. We're handling it directly because we have the good workforce to be able to handle that. We've started conversations, and I heard taxpayers don't go to the companies to have a discussion, but what we are doing, we are going to those companies ourselves. We are collaborating with the various agencies and MDAs in the state to avoid the conflicts, to make sure that we carry everybody along. And with that, that will reduce the issues around multiple taxation as much as possible. So what is the name called? Harmonized tax system. And I'm happy that even the federal government is also doing that. And as we move on, even the federal inland revenue in the states, conversations have started. We wouldn't want different audits. You realize that people from FIRS will come to you, finish their audits. The people in the state will also come, do audits. In some instances, we even come and do semi-annual audits. We don't want all that to happen. Conversation is on where we'll have just one audit. And even as we move on, we'll have one demand notice. One demand notice will include all the taxes you have to pay. And we recognize what cross-variants are passing through. I'm very confident that in a very short time, some of these things will be a thing of the past, and we won't have so many multiple taxes in the system as we move on.
Okay, let me quickly just add this as a follow-up to that question. It's known that some had alleged that a few companies had to leave the state before now due to the multiple taxation. Is there any plan for tax holiday?
Yes, I'm having that conversation with Excellency. For investors, I'm unsure that is also on it. I've seen certain situations where some tax waivers are granted to companies who are coming into the states. And it's a confidential decision. We're writing a memo to His Excellency for consideration so that most of those investors that are coming into the states, depending on the time frame, we will look at it together. We also offer our own advice because we know that when they come in, they will employ our people. People will do supplies in those companies, and it has a multiplier effect on cross-variants. And that I'm confident that that approval, I'm very sure that it's going to be approved. And so many investors in the state will surely enjoy those holidays as we move on.
Okay. Now, before you came on board, there's been this issue of leakages. Now we know that the IGR of the state may not be anything meaningful if leakages are allowed. How do you intend to close that gap?
Okay, honestly, it's a challenge which we're addressing. Let me start with the issues with the roadblocks around the system. If you count the number of roadblocks from Bakassi to Banliko, it's really much. What have we done? Last week we went on an enforcement team, and they were all in the south, and we arrested 14 people currently as we speak. They're in detention, and we've seen some fake receipts with them, and let me say that we're going to prosecute them in line with the law, and where we find them guilty, because we even there are some claims that some persons are supposed to collect certain kinds of revenue and even increasing those revenue. Well, I'm looking out for those kind of receipts. Please, we have a customer service desk. If you have any evidence or some of the revenues that are being collected that is not in line with the law, I'm available. I will take it up even with the consultant. We're not only going to blacklist that consultant, but we're going to prosecute that consultant because that's a fraud. But aside that, we're also, the enforcement team includes our staff, all the security agencies in the state, and they were in the central this week. They just came back yesterday. I'm yet to get the full report, but I'm also aware that some arrests have been made in the central. Even last month, we arrested some people in the north. And let me also say this without missing words. Please, if you are a consultant and you have a habit of possibly increasing the amount that is not in line with the law, what I would advise, please go and change those receipts, because we will come after you in the next few days. And what to us, we cannot continue to make Crossvariant suffer. Whatever we need to do to be able to clear those illegal roadblocks on the road, which is really what we're talking about. Because if you are collecting revenue illegally, then that's one of the leakages. And even when we've given targets to most of the revenue agents, I must commend some of them. Some of them have paid the revenue upfront, and I have the names. Those that have paid, I'm impressed with what they've done. Some even went as far as collecting loans to make sure they meet those targets, because my team calls them every day. Because by the time somebody calls you every day to make sure that you pay what you have to pay to the government, you will surely make those kind of payments. So that's what we're doing to reduce those leakages. But let me also add that even at that, no system is 100% perfect. If there are information, very crucial information that will assist us reduce some of these other leakages, we will be available to take those kind of information. But I must say that these leakages are gradually reducing. That's why you could see the revenue increase from 1.7 to about 2.6 as at September. And we will continue to do what we have to do. And some of the MDAs are really doing so well, I must confess. Let me specifically mention the Forestry Commission. Even when there are gaps here and there, we are on it. We are working with the relevant MDAs and ministries to make sure we close those gaps. But as much as also my assurance is that we will continue to do our best professionally, whatever we have to do to make sure we support the government in achieving its objective. Thank you.
Okay, it's on record that when you came on board, just a few months, after your appointment, you broke a record by, generating the very high turnover of IGR in the state. Would you mind talking to us on that?
Okay, thanks. Like I said, key, it's the people. And another thing we did was, thanks to His Excellency, who looked at some of these areas and then decided to assist us to close the gap. We had some meetings with the Forestry Commission, which there were some gaps in between. And after that meeting, we had some of our staff go around alongside in collaboration with the members of the Forestry Commission. I must say that we've got some margin from there. And yes, like I said, no system is perfect, but as much as possible, we've closed that gap, and that has also assisted in getting us to where we are. Aside that, let me mention for record purpose that that same commission is doing a lot looking at the regeneration, because one thing is working on it, another is doing regeneration to plant more trees. I'm aware of some of the conversations they are having, And I'm very sure that with kind of person that's been appointed into that commission, more will be done. And what do we do again separately? There's a company that's been engaged. We're working with the CRGIA. It's another very good revenue point. I'm aware that the governor is also looking at that area to see that whatever we have to do in terms of the revenue from that angle comes into the states. Then I've also talked about some of these consultants that were not paying. I've set up a team that does daily calls to all the consultants, and we've said it, all the consultants, what we give them for 90 days. And where there's no performance in 90 days, you've not met to target in 90 days, we'll blacklist you, we're not going to assign those jobs to you anymore. Then another thing with this was to start the interface with the companies that are in the states, because that collaboration assists a lot, and some of this collaboration brought us some leakages that were in the system. Because recently we got to know some money that was somewhere that we're also working on to bring into the state. But let me add here again that the state belongs to all of us. Some persons have come to me to say, Chairman, I'm aware there's a particular money somewhere that should come to Cross River State. Please let me know, come to my office. Some of you that has been to my office, I have an open door policy. Please come, pass those information to me, because when those money comes to the state, it's going to be used for the betterment of Cross Riverians. And I'm open to discussion. I'm open having those conversations with anybody that will take us to where we truly want to be in the state. So these are some of the things that we did differently, and we changed the structure in the organization. Now we have a cluster system for the personal income tax division. And what we did, like I said, we changed some staff around, and for those that are not working, we asked them to leave, especially some of the staff that were not actually working, but we realized that some persons were not actually showing their skills, doing what they really had to do. So those are some of the changes. It's the same people, it's the same persons that we have used to achieve whatever we achieved today. And just to educate Cross Riverians, the area that we are concerned is the withholding tax and the pay as you earn. Those are very key ones for some of these companies, especially those companies that are in the states that you feel that they may not have been paying tax to the states. Please come to our office, pass the information to us. The law allows us to do whatever we have to do. And I know there are other areas that we need to talk on. Rental income. If you're a tenant, you are paying rent to your landlord has to pay rental income to the states. It's given. But where your landlord is not paying rental income to then it's cheating the state. Just to add again, if you look at, even the Bible itself says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. If you claim to be a Christian and you are not paying your tax, then you are not a complete Christian. So you cannot claim to be a Christian and you say you are not paying your tax, because even the Bible says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So let's do this together, and I'm confident the governor is also a very good man who believes that he has to use the resources well for the interests of the state. And I must say that this state will not going to remain the same again after the tenure of our Senator Bassel too.
Yeah. So let me quickly chip in there. How are you sustaining the momentum in terms of networking with other stakeholders in the tax cluster?
Okay, thank you. By being the chairman of IRS, I'm also a member of Joint Tax Board. Joint Tax Board is an association of all the IRS chairmen in the country, and there are also some other persons. The chairman of FIRS is there, and some other representatives from road safety, from Ministry of Finance and other bodies. So that forum assists us to exchange ideas, what's happening in other states. Currently I'm doing a peer review. I'm talking to the chairman of IRS in Ebonyi State. I recall you talked about some companies that have left the state, because I understood some of those mining quarry companies in Akamkpa and Biase had left. But I've spoken to him recently, and what he said was, Chairman, is a two-way thing. Some left to Ebonyi and some also left from Bonny and came back to Cross River. But you know, as a state, I've told him, please leave the ones and let them come back to Cross River because we need more money more than the Bonny State. So that's what we're doing. Those conversations are on. I'm talking to the chairman of Lagos State, Akwa Ibom, Sokoto, everywhere to exchange ideas. And these are avenues in which we exchange ideas, all for the betterment of the state and the country in general.
Okay, great. Now, at some point, when we looked at how to block leakages, you raised a very critical issue about those that try to truncate the process of IGR. And they are the illegal loggers, so to say, and the issue of fake agents. I'd love you to talk to us about that. Talk to us again on that.
Okay.
And what your service is doing to ensure that they are being prosecuted.
Truly, like I said, the enforcement teams, they are doing a whole lot. We started taking them to court. But let me also point out that it's very critical that parents, traditional rulers, different associations, we need that collaboration for us to succeed together. This week, I'm going to take some steps alongside my team to see what we need to do. If it means having a session with the chairman of the State Traditional Rulers Council, we'll have that conversation because we need to do that enlightenment among our people. And we've also spoken to the state security advisor. We're talking to other security agencies because it's very critical that we get some of these miscreants off the road. And my concern, like I've said, is one or two occasions where is yet to be confirmed, where possible, for example, the tax you should collect is 2,000 and you want to collect 10,000, which is not really in line with what the tax law says. I'm looking for that kind of example to be able to prosecute that person directly. And I'm very sure that even the government will not support that kind of human being to be in the state. It means you don't have the interest of the state at heart. So those are the discussions with the traditional rulers, the security agencies, having regular engagement with all the associations because we need those engagement. And our enforcement team unannounced will also be on the road to see how they can take these persons off the road. You know, I've said that, yes, I'm having those conversations. If need be, we are going to take everybody on the road. And one key thing we will do in the course of all this, we are going to circulate all the taxes, all the amount that each taxpayer should pay, both from businesses if you are on the road, so that in case anybody collects much more than that, we have a number where you will call where you are and report such person, because we know where everybody is, all the consultants were put in place. And be as it may, if it means us having a billboard to show all the amounts that you have to pay, so that in each of those checkpoints you exactly know the amount you will pay. And these are ways in which things we need to do differently. But most importantly is that when you are found, we are going to prosecute you, and everything will be done in line with the law.
Okay, absolutely. And the very last for me to you is, let's look at your message to Cross Riverians, those watching us, potential taxpayers, those who are currently doing it, and those who are defiant and would want to pay.
Okay, thanks. But before then, let me add one point about because in the state you have the federal law, revenue law, the states, and the local government. And while on the road, you will see some persons will tell you I'm from the local government, some will tell you I'm from the states. We're trying to harmonize this. I'm talking to the commissioner for local government, so that we'll have, the governor is also looking at the document as we speak that will harmonize some of these tax laws, so that even for small businesses that he's trying to encourage in the state, you won't have too many people from local government, from the states coming to meet you for different taxes. We'll have one tax paid for both state and local government, and we'll have a way of splitting those revenues to the various parties. But message to Nigerians is that for Cross Riverians, there's hope for us. And secondly, I'm very confident that with the harmonized tax system, we'll not have so much of multiple taxes in the system. If you are desirous of, if you don't want to wait, if you are desirous of having that start immediately, we can come to our office We have a desk, a customer service desk, that handles most of those conversations, where we'll give you one letter, tell no consultant will come to your office to ask for any other tax. So instead of having 10 consultants coming to you, that letter will show that you are dealing with only one consultant, and that will allow you, carry on your business without any kind of harassment in the states. And this is a moment of sweetness. Let's support the governor, because as you're supporting the governor, you cannot say you're a supporter of the government when you are not paying your tax. Remember my biblical assertion where I said, and it's written, that give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So please assist us pay your tax, assist us do the right thing, so that we can work together to help the governor make progress in the state. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Prince Edwin Okon, Acting Executive Chairman of Cross River Internal Revenue Service. Thank you very much for this insight you brought on the show today. We hope to be having these conversations more often than not, because Cross River State is a state that advocates, very tax-friendly state, so to say. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so this one will be bringing this segment to an end. This is what you have to do for us. Ensure you do not leave your seat, because we are about bringing on our next guest as we take a look at some national political issues. Stay, Weekend Politics return shortly. Don't go.